bring in Mike Jackson of AutoNation for more on what we might be hearing tonight after the close. Mike, just in terms of fly-on-the-wall stuff, are you hearing that there is the possibility or the potential for any kind of blockbuster change, progress with the unions, anything like that?
No, I think it's going to be a tough, drawn-out negotiation. I don't think there's going to be a quick fix here. I'm glad to see somebody's been appointed from the federal government, Ron Bluhm, to be involved in the process. I think that's going to be necessary to get the type of breakthrough structural change that's going to happen. I don't think the leverage is there with the manufacturers and management themselves to get the bondholders and the unions to where they need to be. So I think it's going to be a tough, brutal process over the next weeks.
Yeah. What do you know about Bluhm specifically? And can we sort of read as to where his biases, if there are any, where they might lie? He's done so much for all. He seems to have come at the industry from so many different directions.
Well, I don't know the man, so in a situation like this, I look around to people I respect and see what they say. Wilbur Ross says he's a capable, competent, fair-minded, tough individual that knows a lot about restructuring and dealing with unions. So that sounds like a pretty good start to me. The likelihood of Chapter 11, is that rising or falling in your view? I don't think it can be taken off the table in any circumstances. The threat of bankruptcy has to be there to get the type of restructuring that's needed. Now, let's be clear. We're talking about a government-sponsored bankruptcy. That's a huge difference. The government's going to provide the debtor-in-possession financing and is going to guarantee that the manufacturer comes out of bankruptcy. If you just did a normal bankruptcy, well, first, there's no financing for it. And if the consumer is not convinced that it's coming out of bankruptcy, they're not going to buy the vehicle and revenue is going to collapse. So I think the threat of a government-sponsored bankruptcy needs to remain. I hope it doesn't come to that. Right. I think it's a lot more difficult and messy. I hope they can make a deal without that. And maybe working with Mr. Bluhm, they can get there.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, I know the health care fund, if there were a Chapter 11, would come after many other creditors, right? I mean, it is a pretty heavy hammer to wield if you need to wield it.
It is, but I'll also warn you, Carl, it's big, it's complex, there's unintended consequences. Look at a little company like Delphi that went into bankruptcy in '05. It's still in bankruptcy, and God knows when it's going to come out. So bankruptcy has a lot of unintended consequences. It's complicated. It's difficult. I hope they can restructure these companies without using it. But I, for one, say you can't take the threat off the table.
Yeah. Mike, you've said that your lots are full of fuel-efficient cars right now. We're not going to have a gas tax, probably. It's not politically feasible right now. It's possible that oil doesn't go back up immediately, given what happens in the global economy. Do you think that the Obama administration should force these companies at this time to retool and to force green initiatives on the companies right now? Does that make economic sense?
Makes absolutely no economic sense whatsoever. And this is one of the reasons why the industry wanted a car czar, someone that could go down, be in Washington and say to the U.S. government, you know, your policy is absolutely schizophrenic. You're talking about an industry and its economic viability, but you're mandating them to produce vehicles that most people don't want to buy at $2 a gallon gasoline. And how are we going to bridge this gap? And that gets back to our earlier conversation. You really need an energy policy and an energy plan. So it's a big disconnect for the industry, but the train has left the station on fuel efficiency. We have a new federal law that insists on 36 miles per gallon by 2020. California standards are on the horizon. I'm fully convinced the Obama administration is going to grant the waiver to California, which is going to push a much more aggressive timeline on fuel efficiency. Another 14 states are hooked to California. That's 43% of the business.
No, I don't see how you how do you avoid bankruptcy then, Mike?
The fuel efficiency die is cast.
The deck is stacked against the automaker.
The deck is stacked. Yeah, it's a tough deal. It's a really tough deal.
What you just painted, that scenario that you just painted, I don't see any way out.
Well, we're on the verge of a lot of technical innovation, and there's a lot behind the scenes that they can still make it. But it does steepen the challenge, and it is
a
schizophrenic disconnect.
I mean, it's been
okay.
Can you believe it got worse since December? Well, you would know. I mean, you're trying to sell these things, but I mean, it's gotten worse.
Has it gotten worse?
Has it gotten worse?
No, it has not.
Oh,
from a retail point of view, the industry has flatlined since September 15th at an annual selling rate of about 10 million units. Some of the fleet business evaporated in January and February. Here's interesting fact. We still have more demand than we have credit. Our traffic is only off 20%. Our sales are off 40%. The missing piece is credit. So you would get any sort of credit thaw, and you could see a lift in volumes in a relatively short period of time. Longer term, Joe, to your point, you still face the fuel efficiency challenge. But the near-term challenge is credit. You
don't think Carlos Ghosn is far off when he says that we might be near a bottom in terms of the sales rate?
I say the sales rate is at a bottom. It's been stable since September 15th. With TALF, if we get any sort of improved credit availability, that number is going to lift off of 10 million. As the cost structure is dramatically reduced so much, you're going to be profitable so much quicker at lower volume levels. You're going to go from a famine to a feast situation in our industry.
All right. Mike, let's hope for something like that sometime soon. Talk to you soon. Mike Jackson joining us from Florida. When we
come back, this morning.
The government's